George. Today we're going to talk about some of the family trips that you made trying to see all 50 states. And maybe we should start with the Yellowstone adventure.
Well, as we pulled into the Yellowstone National Park range, and I was being hampered, but not hampered, but criticized by my family because we didn't make any reservations. And of course, we looked all over in the area to see if there was if anything was available, and there wasn't. So we stopped and ate at the lodge, and I thought, man, here we're eating first class, and we're going to go back and sleep in the car someplace. And actually, in order to park any place in the park to spend the night, you had to have permission or a reservation, and which I never did make reservations. Anyway, we found a place where we parked our car. It was near facilities, restrooms and so forth. And then you had to go to the bathroom, which was very close, convenient. And she gets in and all through her duties in the bathroom, is about to come out, and there's a big bear right in front of the door. So she got back. And then as soon as the bear went away, she ran over to get the boys out because they were sleeping up on the top of the car. And George was going, well, it's so nice up here, sleeping with the stars, and the blankets come down. And I said, well, you get down and get in the car, because Betty was worried. Well, as he's climbing down, he steps on a bear. Man, he got into that car in a hurry. So he slipped the boys in the back, and Betty and I and Carol in front of in the front seat. And then, of course, like I mentioned, before we found this place to park, we had dinner in the dining room, a very nice dining room on the park's grounds. And then, like I say, went back and slept that night in this area that wasn't, we hadn't made any reservations for.
And on that Yellowstone trip, did you go to any other states as well? Did you go farther west or Colorado or what?
Well, we covered all the states north and south of the area where we were. And then we managed, when doing our planning, is to try to cover as many of the states on our route so we can eventually have covered all of the states in the United States, the 48 states in the United States.
Do you remember any other adventures on the Yellowstone trip when you went up to, let's say, Montana or out to Oregon?
We stopped driving through the Yellowstone National Park. There's a sort of a dining area, outdoor camping area, and there's a big crowd. So we got out of the car, and there's a mother bear with a sore paw and a cub, and the people were around it, and she swatted at them and all jumped back. I said, boy, let's not get too close, you know. And like they said, this bear with a sore paw. So we got out of the area because you never know, they could really, well, turn on you. And then we stopped at dinner. And as we went out to do some walking, and here comes this couple of bears walking on the path toward us, and I'm looking for a stick or something to have to fight it off, you know. And we didn't say too much, and the bear walks with a couple of cubs right past us, you know. That was our experience with the bear. But they were so cool, you could almost touch the bears.
Well, let's, any other places that you went on that trip? Do you have any memories of, let's say, California?
I don't really, can't remember specific spots. The only thing I do remember, our family were good travelers, and we always believed in getting up at the crack of dawn, which would be around 4 or 5 in the morning, and we get in the car, and we pack and leave and drive until around 8 or 9 o'clock, then have breakfast. but like I say, they were good drivers, good riders, and early risers, and nobody grumbled. They just got on the car. We want to stop early in the afternoons, so we find a place with a motel and swimming pool, and then relax for the balance of the evening. And that's how we managed to travel. We got up early and stopped early, around 2 or 3, or even earlier, at a nice motel. Then I'd sit at the long side of the pool, and George would come running by, and little Carol would come, strut the last one all the time, jumping into the pool. And then, of course, all the motels already had swimming pools. We were up in the northern part of Arizona, Flagstaff, and it's a little cooler there. And I'm with my trunks, and I'm watching everybody's jumping in and getting out, and say the water's fine, and for me, it asked me I should go in. And I said, water fine? They said, fine. So I dived in, and man, it was cold. I got out of the pool in a hurry. And of course, that was a big laugh. But we it's not that very interesting. Of course, hard to remember all the places. And then things off the beaten path, off our travels through northern Arizona. And I just forget the trails we've taken, and where the old time travelers maybe in little niches where they would spend the night in some cavern in the mountainside.
You remember seeing Grand Canyon? Did you go there?
Yeah, we're through Grand Canyon, and we walked along those. And I think there's a trail, and I just forget it. They didn't advise you if you weighed over 150 pounds to walk on that trail. I don't know why, because the path was so narrow. And then we find a grocery store, got some lunch meat and bread. And of course, now we're in Arizona, a very high area. And as you take the bread out of the wrapping, of wax wrapping, it would get kind of frosted right, so dry. And so we had to improvise a lot with our lunches and so forth.
Did you stop through Las Vegas when you were in that area?
Well, one trip we were through Las Vegas, and went to the casinos. And of course, the guard, they'd like to have families walk through, so I had to stand, walk with the guard. We walked into the sort of the bar and a little rest area, and with Carol, just a little tiny girl, and sitting at the bar and ordered a little lunch meat, and there was a nude painting on the wall. And at that time, Carol was reading a book of Mowgli, the Bear Bottoms and so forth, and Carol pointed up at one of the drawings, at Mowgli. But they had a guard with us walking through the gambling portion.
I bet Las Vegas was a lot different back in those days.
It was different. Of course, it was very simpler too. And I just forget, of course, they had all these hawkers on the sideline trying to come in so you could gamble at these outdoor cafes and so forth. And we did go in, and Betty somehow, they gave her some money to start gambling, and fortunately they opened that you'd lose and start using more of your money. Well, Betty didn't lose, she was so they were happy to see us get out of there, because she kept all her earnings, she did, but I lost all mine.
Did you go to California on that same trip by chance?
Yeah, I mean, see, Betty's folks, their relatives are out in Sacramento, California, and they go to Dillon's Beach on the coast of the Pacific Ocean. Dillon's Beach is where they had cottages. And at that time, Betty's family had a large family, 10 children in the family. They were all adults at that time, and half of them were all retired, living out in California. And they kind of was supervising their children when they were on the coast there that they didn't get too far, too close to the water. But they were very, coming from a large farm, very solicitous of taking care of younger children and so forth. So we had a great time with them.
Did you visit there very often, more than once?
With the whole family, on driving trips, there were a couple of times. In Sacramento, they went to Dillon's Beach where some of them had cottages. We did that a few times, and of course, she had uncles and aunts in different areas in the area, places in the area. So we'd stop and see them, or Aunt Frances and Uncle Henry, and all these other people. And there were, of course, 10 people in that family. Then that evening they'd have a reunion, the whole family gathering, because Norman, their brother, his son, he was a third, they were the second oldest in the family. They were all there, all 11 of the Giles family, males and females.
Big family.
Very, very large family. And their grandfather is just a feisty 80-some-year-old fellow. And his wife was just very, not very stout, but very solid. And she had 10 children. And they were all very active. And the grandfather, he was on a ladder cleaning out the eaves. He's in his 80s. But they were a very vital group.
So it looks like the Giles family pretty much migrated out to California.
Yeah, it was interesting because Betty's father, as a young man, is a Boulder, and he was traveling all over the United States, and he could always get a job in the foundry because he was a union card-bearing molding person. So he could apply a job, got a job very easy because of his card, a union card, and his trade. And he did a lot of traveling, and he's the one that worked in foundries in Texas and California, Arizona. And he came back telling his family how great California was, what a nice spot. Now, they were living in the Upper Peninsula at that time. So when they heard how great it was, it sounded so nice, they all moved to California from the Upper Peninsula. And he's the only one that never moved out. There still was in Michigan and Ohio.
Well, that's an interesting migration.
The whole family migrated except for Norm, Betty's father. And he was a very interesting person.
And they all found, did they find work in foundries out there, or just every occupation?
Well, there were foundries, but most of them got different jobs, but not in the foundry. He was the only one that actually worked in the foundry in the United States. And he worked at Ford's in the foundry, and he was a good molder, and the supervision at Ford Motor Company at that company thought very highly of him because he's very proficient and very knowledgeable in foundry practice. And they thought a lot of him. And this friend of Betty's father was telling his wife what Norman never has to worry about a job because Ford just loves him. And at that time, the Ford supervision at that was very young and new, and he had a good reputation. But he also was a very proud molder craftsman, like he was. And one of the supervisors was critical of something that he did, and he had a short time. He grabbed it by the. For a guy that was never had to worry about not losing his job, well, he was out of a job. But he was a good craftsman. And then later he started his own pattern shop in Toledo, Ohio.
Very interesting. You want to get back to family trips? You went to Texas at one point, didn't you?
Yeah, we went to San Antonio, that bordered with Mexico. And at that time, Betty was just a baby. And we met an interesting guy who was recommended to us when we were there to use him as a guide to sightsee the area. From Betty's folks, they preceded us on this trip to Texas all the way back to California, and we kind of followed their itinerary. So anyway, we met him, and he took us into Mexico, and Georgia was just a baby at that time, and we did some Rio de Janeiro, and that's in Brazil. But I forget now the name of the town. The very tip of Texas and Mexico, Monterrey, I think it was.
Yeah.
So George was a baby at that time, and he just a little year, just a year old. As a matter of fact, in Arizona, he was just a year old and could crawl on the grass. Of course, it was winter up here.
Did you need passports to get into Mexico? Do you remember?
At that time, you didn't have to have, because it was just a sightseeing deal to get back the same day. We didn't have to have any legal other than being an American citizen.
Anything else happen while you were in Texas?
In Texas, not really. Just that we tell us some of the interesting parts of Texas or Mexico that was connected to Texas.
You mentioned once that there was a blizzard on Route 66.
We were in a motel in Texas, and there's a blizzard swept through the panhandle of Texas in there, and and it was really blowing and cold, and we got up out of the car. George was just a baby, got ready to leave, and our neighbor in the next unit couldn't start his car. So I took Betty into the restaurant at the motel, and we got him out, and I pushed him. Then our bumpers got stuck, so I had to get out and try to get him unhooked. We got him so he was gone. Then I thought I had frostbitten ears. So when we stopped in Shamrock, Texas, and went to stop, I got a fight. The weather was bad. We got the last unit at this hotel, and I had a laugh with a couple in front of us and lined up trying checking for the room. This young couple, married couple with their mother-in-law, were traveling, and the male was pretty upset because the mother-in-law was telling him what to do, and we were lined up to check in, and he was frustrated. Anyway, we checked in, and I stopped to see the doctor about my ear, frostbitten. He said, he's from Texas and you're from Michigan. He didn't know anything about frostbitten ears, and he laughed about it. Well, it wasn't too severe. So that was part of Texas experience. But at that time, we were driving through, and there was a tremendous storm. And the roads were almost spots that were impassable on this expressway. And the snow was car high on both sides of the road. And then you had to drift across the road, and they had to get a car through. All the guys, because we had a whole string of cars behind us in this chain. They get a car, and with the manpower, they'd get the car through that to cut a path. Then the trucks would go to cut it wider. Then we all follow until the next roadblock.
So you'd be pushing, few people would be pushing a car.
Right. And then, in fact, they got into Oklahoma City, where we got out of the snow traffic. They got one of the last rooms at this hotel, Biltmore Hotel. And the guy says, how many of you family? I said, just had a baby at George at that time. He says, I can't turn you out. So they found a room and cleaned out his display room and set us for the night. So if we're advantages, I mean, when I checked in, they said, we don't have anything. And I was very dejected. He said, just a minute, how many of your family? I told you I had a baby. So we went over, they got a crib and got everything, found a room, and put us up for the night at the Biltmore. So we had some real narrowing experiences in our travels.
Well, let's continue this in the next video. Thank you, George.